In our last lesson, we learned how to add polynomials. And of course, the opposite of adding is subtracting. So we are going to learn how to subtract these things today. First of all, what we need to understand is opposites. What is the opposite of a polynomial or a monomial? So just like in just regular numbers, if I had the number 3, the opposite of 3 is negative 3. If I had a negative 5, the opposite of negative 5 is a positive 5. Same thing is true with monomials and polynomials. So say I wanted to take the opposite of some of these. So 4x squared y. If I wanted to take the opposite of it, what would that be? So basically it is taking the opposite of each individual term. And it usually is referring to the coefficient. So in this case, we have a 4x squared y, so our coefficient is 4. So the opposite would be negative 4x squared y. We take the opposite of the coefficient. Now we can do the same thing with a polynomial. So in your case, a binomial, I want to take the opposite of that. So what I'm going to do is take the opposite of negative 5x. So the opposite of negative 5 is 5. So I have 5x. I have positive 4xy to the 5th. The opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. So the only thing that changes is the sign of the coefficient. And now I have a trinomial. I want to take the opposite of that. So the opposite of a negative 8x is a positive 8x. Opposite of a positive 5x is a negative 5x. The opposite of a negative 6 is a positive 6. And of course, we could start combining things right here if we really wanted to. So now what we are going to do is we're going to look at subtracting this polynomial minus this one. And as you learned probably back in 2nd grade, when you subtract a number, you're like going backwards. So you're doing the opposite. When you finally got to maybe 6th grade, you're going to add the opposite of that number. So subtracting a number is adding a negative. So what we are going to do is when we see a subtraction, we are going to make this, we are going to add the opposite of this number, of this polynomial. So that means essentially this minus sign is going to distribute into that polynomial. So we are really adding the opposite of this. Okay. Now when we add the opposite of this, we are going to distribute it in. So we are going to have a minus 4b cubed minus b plus 12. We are going to take the opposite of each one of those. And we are going to simply add it to this. So now we can just combine like terms. Here's a b cubed minus, so 2b to the third minus 4b to the third is a negative 2b to the third. I'm going to cross those off. I only have 1b squared, so plus 5b squared. And then I have a minus b. And then I have negative 8 plus 12, which is a 4. And it's always customary to write your terms with the powers decreasing. So the degree of each monomial will be decreasing. Okay. So now what we can also do is we can write these vertically. So we're going to take this 4x squared plus 6x minus 1, and we are going to subtract this whole polynomial, lining up the terms. So here's my x squared, and I have a 9x, and I have a minus 5. So if you wanted to, you could think subtraction if you wanted to. You could say 4x squared minus 3x squared, and you do that. Or we can convert this to adding the opposite of this. Okay, so let's rewrite this. You can do whatever you feel is easiest to you. Okay? So we are going to take the opposite of each of these terms and then add it. So this is a negative 3x squared, a negative 9x, and then the opposite of this is a positive. Okay? So now we can simply add 4x squared and a negative 3x squared. That's a 1x squared. And we know that when you have a 1, you don't have to put 6x and a negative 9x, that is a negative 3x. Negative 1 and a positive 5 is a positive 4. So here would be the answer. And that is how we subtract polynomials.